If your children feel they are LGBT and you, as a parent, suggest that's not the right way, that is, according to the Minister of Child and Family Services who introduced the legislation, abuse. And the children, in his words, must be removed from the abusive situation, meaning from their parents. And yet this was passed in Ontario and signed into law by our Premier, who, by the way, is a lesbian. So again, we come to bad news. But please remember, where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. And in the end, her Immaculate Heart will triumph. Praise be to God. But we have also a greater horror than all of this. We founded something called the Rome Life Forum, as I told you. It was founded in Rome as a strategy session for life and family leaders to get together. We weren't expecting that many the first year, but 75 showed up. We were sort of startled at listening to life and family leaders from all over the world coming together to discuss what was most troubling to them. And this is early 2014. And all of us, in all the countries in the West, experience the same thing: abortion, contraception, same-sex marriage, gender education, attack on parents' rights, in all of our countries. And yet, for many, many of those leaders, they said what was most troubling wasn't any of that. What was most troubling was the turmoil in the church over these very issues. Mm-hmm. We had never before in the movement experienced turmoil from the Vatican to the scale we have since 2013. Mm-hmm. And this was devastating for the leaders. But that shouldn't be a surprise. I want to show you something that should strike us all to the core of our hearts. And it's this. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. If my people, who are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. My dear brothers and sisters, if only us, and I speak us, big me, 3 fingers at me, will do these things. We'll humble ourselves, pray, seek his face, and turn from our wicked ways. The Jesuits used to say, if I could have only 5 good Catholics, we could take over the world. You're many more than 5. Personal holiness is the real call. Pope Benedict XVI, in his recently released preface to the new Russian edition of his complete works, spoke of a crisis that has subverted the church. Father John Anthony yesterday was quoting from St. Benedict in his flight to Portugal from May 2010 when he was talking about Fatima. Here's another quote from that same airplane flight. He said, an indication is given of the realities involving the future of the church, that's from the message of Fatima, which are gradually taking shape and becoming evident. As for the new things which we can find in this message, that's Fatima message for today, he said we are seeing it in a really terrifying way. The greatest persecution of the church comes not from her enemies from without, but arises from sin within the church. We've been embroiled in the sex scandals, but even I would say worse than the sex scandal is scandal that comes from getting rid of or hiding or confusing the teaching of Christ, the greatest treasure of the church. Cardinal Sarah said on March 31st, 2017, there's a serious crisis of faith not only at the level of the Christian faithful, but also and especially among many priests and bishops. Today, he said, a significant number of church leaders underestimate the serious crisis that the church is going through
relativism in doctrinal, moral, and disciplinary teaching, grave abuses, the desacralization and trivialization of the sacred liturgy. He also said in April, without a common faith, the church is threatened by confusion, and then progressively she can slide into dispersion and schism. Today, there's a grave risk of the fragmentation of the church, breaking up the mystical body of Christ by insisting on the national identities of the churches, and thus on their capacity to decide for themselves, above all, in this so crucial domain of doctrine and morals. And I'm sorry to say, but today we already have schism in the church. Because when you have in one country, in Germany, where divorced or remarried Catholics who cannot get an annulment, invited to come forward for Holy Communion, and yet in another country across the border in Poland that regarded still as always as a mortal sin, we already have a schism in the church. In his book, The Power of Silence, Cardinal Sarah says, even today our pastoral strategies, without any demands, without an appeal to conversion, without a radical to return to God, are paths that lead nowhere. They are politically correct games that cannot lead us to the crucified God, our true liberator. Something like an earthquake, he said, is seeking to demolish her doctrinal foundations and her centuries-old moral teachings. In January of this year, shortly before his death, Cardinal Kafar said, only a blind man may deny there's a great confusion and uncertainty and insecurity in the church. I'm going to go over in these few minutes that are left just some of the actual things that are going on in the Vatican. But I would direct you to LifeSite News and to our Catholic magazine called Faithful Insight, which we have in the back there, for more detail. These are very troubling things, and ones which it gives me great pain to have to cover, but cover for the sake of love and for the good of the church. This is Cardinal Godfrey Daniels wearing a rainbow sash in support or against the church's teaching, if you will. One person who has great access to the Holy Father. We have to pray for the Holy Father like we've never prayed before. He is surrounded by influencers who are suggesting very negative things. Cardinal Walter Kasper is the cardinal who launched the synods with a speech talking about this proposal that we're now dealing with of communion for divorced and remarried Catholics. And then we've got some really crazy things going on that strike to the heart of the pro-life movement all over the world. We have had conferences in the Vatican over the last few years on biological extinction, another one coming up in November, and that's why I'm going to Rome in November again to actually speak at a press conference confronting this. We had Paul Ehrlich speak at the Vatican. He's the author of Population Bomb, one of the foremost proponents of population control on the planet. He's compared human babies to garbage and said that the Catholic Church's moral teachings are just as unethical as a terrorist act, and suggested sex-selective abortion might be a better fate for girls than being born. LifeSite News, we delivered a petition of more than 10,000 signatures asking the Vatican to rescind Ehrlich's invitation to speak, and nevertheless it went forward. It went forward not only with Ehrlich, but with other population controllers there. These aren't just normal people who support population control. These are the most extremist among them. They suggest a culling of the world's population down to 1 billion. How they propose to do that, I don't know. But it's obviously through abortion, contraception, sterilization, and an attack on the unity between the procreative and unitive aspects of marriage. Finally, there is, at least well, a couple more, but Antonio Spadaro is one of the ghostwriters for the Pope, helps to write documents. He's the one to whom the Holy Father goes for most interviews. He's the editor-in-chief of Civiltà Cattolica, the Jesuit magazine in Rome. And he puts out all sorts of things which are damaging for faith and directing them to the Holy Father. He put out this tweet saying, welcoming those young people who prefer to live together without getting married. These things are so very damaging to our children because a lot of our kids, my kids, would love to meet the Holy Father. And to show a hand-holding couple going forward to greet the Holy Father and mention that they're cohabitating is damaging indeed. This is Archbishop Paglia, the head of the Academy for Life. Very controversial character. I'm not even going to skip over quickly the slides. He introduced a sex ed program from the Vatican at World Youth Day in Krakow that was really damaging for faith to children. It included all sorts of images that were very inappropriate that I would never show my children. And yet it was a program from the Vatican. Can you imagine trying to fight that as the pro-life, pro-family movement all around the world when in your Catholic schools they confront you with, no, this is the sex education from the Vatican itself. Nevertheless, that's what we have. So, the lay faithful are actually called to speak out on these things. This is from Canon Law number 212. They, speaking to faithful, they have the right, indeed sometimes the duty, in keeping with their knowledge, competence, and position, to manifest to the sacred pastors their views on matters which concern the good of the Church. They have the right also to make their views known to others of Christ's faithful, but in doing so they must always respect the integrity of faith and morals, show due reverence to their pastors, and take into account both the common good and the dignity of individuals. And at LifeSite News, we strive to do that. It's an incredibly difficult road. It's the most difficult thing we've done in our 20 years of existence. It's the thing that pains us most, even though we've had to deal with abortion and same-sex marriage and religious oppression in terms of religious freedom for so many years. As I said to you before, more details on this can be found in our magazine, Faithful Insight. These are some of the covers over the last little while. I've got some sample copies. I think most of them are gone, unfortunately. But we will keep when there's single copies left, we'll keep them out there so that they can be viewed. And they're available for a donation or free if you want to subscribe for 1 or 2 years. There's forms there at the table, and I'll see you out there as well after the talk if you have questions or whatnot.